Good morning, everybody. So, what we're going to do today is look at chapter 12, and we're going to look at some financial crises that have happened over time. And of course, the one we're most familiar with is the one that happened in 2008. Maybe you're not familiar with it, but I am. I lost a lot of money, so that's the way that goes. So, all right. So anyway, the question is, what is a financial crisis? Basically, it is a large disruption to information flows in financial markets, with the result that financial frictions increase sharply and financial markets stop functioning. And basically, what it is there's asymmetric information, where there's more information in down below with the people running the company than it was with other with the local investors. And what happens is they're not getting all the information, and we end up with a crisis where Moody's and Standard & Poor's are rating mortgage securities AAA when they're packaged. Let's say they have 100 mortgages they package, and 99 are junk, but one is AAA, and then they rate the whole package AAA. So that's the standard argument that went on in 08. So, and then things crumble from that point on. And then the Fed and the federal government have to come up with a TOP program to bail out troubled asset reliefs with that program that they came up with, the TOP program. All right, so there's a couple stages. I don't know if they all follow this particular pattern, but normally there's a credit boom. Like, remember the dot-com boom? We had the dot-com boom, and everyone thought, oh, this is where the money's going to go. And then eventually these balloons, or booms, if you want, whatever you want to call them, they burst, right? They eventually burst. And because basically there's mismanagement, and greed kicks in, and a lot of lying and goes on. And asset prices jump up too quick, too high. And then, the uncertainty kicks in, and then we start having a banking crisis where, basically the banks don't want to loan money because the banks get nervous, right? They don't want to buy, troubled assets. And the banks were, back then in 08, the banks weren't even lending to each other. And then you basically have debt deflation, where the value of these securities have no value. They're worth nothing. Okay, as you saw with the Lehman Brothers stock and Bear Stearns stock, they were worth nothing. So here's a little table that gives you a sequence of events, right, in financial crises, and this is probably a little better to see in your book. Here's stage 1, here's stage 2, here's the initial phase, and as we just talked about, here's the banking crisis, and then there's the debt deflation. And it kind of takes off from here, in that, this pattern here. All right, so the one that everyone knows about through history now anyway, and some people were still alive back then, is the Great Depression. All right, so during the Great Depression, and J.P. Morgan gets a lot of blame for a lot of this, right? There was a stock market crash, and banks panicked, and you saw the It's a Wonderful Life, right? You saw the movie, the run on the banks. There's a run on the banks. So there's bank panics, and stock prices continue to free fall. And again, nothing has any value. Debt just keeps deflating, right? The value is nothing. And a lot of these companies today, they're troubled, and they have. And again, I own a fund that's got junk bonds. So, individual companies have this kind of situation too. They're in trouble, and the debt deflates. And what you have to do is you have to buy their bonds at a really high coupon rate. Hope the company survives and pays you back. So this is basically stock prices during the Great Depression here. And here's the peak of the market. That was probably somewhere around, I guess around 29 or so. And by 32 it had dropped. And then whatever programs, Roosevelt came up with a lot of different programs, right, to try to heal the market and get people back to work. He, the Workers Program Administration to put people back to work, building national parks or whatever. But here you see stock prices. This is the Dow Jones Industrial Average during the Depression. And you could, again, these slides are great. You can find that data right here. All right, so here were credit spreads during the Great Depression, right? And basically here's junk. Look at the prices went so low that the interest rates went up. Look, BAA U.S. Treasury spread %. Uncertainty in financial markets increased the spread between corporate bonds and low-risk Treasury bonds. So you can see the difference here. So, all right, and then the spread eventually went down as things began to, cool off a little. But this was like the peak of the spread. All right, so sip of coffee first. All right, and then we have the one I lived through, right, recently, 10 years ago. It seems to be a crisis every 10 years. I don't know. People are predicting one now. Only God knows if we're going to happen. But the global financial crisis of 2007 through 9. And as I mentioned, there were financial innovations, subprime mortgages, and they were packaged. And mortgage-backed securities. And collateralized debt obligations. And basically a housing bubble formed because the concept back then was housing prices always go up. But the only problem is they were giving mortgages to people who couldn't pay them. People were getting mortgages. People were making $40,000 a year and buying homes for $500,000. And they would miss the first two payments, and it was over for them. And they would default on the mortgages, and then it took off from there. And the subprime mortgage market, basically, the house demand and housing prices, and it was an artificial bubble. It was the banks created for the most part. It was just an artificial bubble created by the banks. So nothing you can do about it. They seem to occur every 10 years, as I said. So basically, there was this model that was came up, and originate to distribute. So they originated mortgage and then they distributed to anybody. Okay. And basically, the investor, which was us, that bought the house, and the broker, he didn't care. And this was the big line. This is an important line, right? Borrowers had little incentive to disclose information about their ability to pay. All right, and here's the whole thing about rating agencies, commercial and investment banks, and the rating agency had weak incentives to assess the quality. Everybody had their hand in the pocket, so to speak. And then all of a sudden it started coming out that these mortgages were not that good. And then inevitably the housing price bubble burst and people lost a lot of money. Anyway, I bought my condo in 2006. Right, I had to buy my condo to have a place to live, and then right after that it burst, so I lost money. So there's nothing I could do. All right, so I'm 10 minutes into this. I'm going to just create the video for this, and today is, I believe, the 15th, so just to make sure in about 10 days we have the final, right? Something like that, right? Let me, hold on, let me make this big. So I'll say hello to everybody, but in about 10 days we have the final coming up. So, start preparing and make sure you're reading and doing all the homeworks and everything. Hello. Alrighty, I'll talk to you all later.